Welcome everybody to today's webinar with ESUCC Co-op. And today we have David Ludwig with Resolute Guard. And Resolute Guard is a proactive cyber risk management tool. And I'll let David explain the rest because that's no longer my wheelhouse anymore. So
Right.
David, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you, Craig. Appreciate it. Well, let me share my screen. Okay. Can everyone see it? Hey, Craig, can you see it?
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay, great. All right, sounds great. Well, again, I appreciate being here, and Craig, thank you for your time and scheduling this. And as a former Nebraskan, well, I'm always a Nebraskan, but did my entire career for 37 years in Nebraska, and then ended up being my last stay was the executive director for ESU Coordinating Council, and worked closely with Greg Peterson every day. So that's why it gives me such pleasure to be here. And I see another familiar face here with Jelaine Fry. So good seeing her as well. So today I'm vice president of a company called Resolute Guard, and we're a company that specializes in cybersecurity. We work with public entities, including especially with K-12. And I work closely with the service agencies as well as school districts nationwide. So today I want to talk to you about how to provide public entities with the tools and resources to prepare for the ever-evolving cybersecurity challenges. And if we think back 10 years ago, how many times or how many people did you hear either experienced a cyber attack or heard of a cyber attack? Think of that. Think of 5 years ago. Think a year ago, and think of today. And if you look at that small population size there, you can tell that, and we all know that cyber attacks are on the rise. The cyber criminals are becoming more intuitive. They're becoming more proactive, and K-12, for various reasons, have been viewed as a soft target. So this is what I want to talk to you today about. And with Resolute Guard, we incorporate a framework called the Smart Cyber Action Plan, a SMART CAP. And within this entire process emulates what we've been doing in education for years with a continuous improvement model. So with what's happening today within not just K-12, but nationwide and worldwide with cyber attacks, it's important and imperative that every entity, every school district, every service agency has a plan with a strategy for continuously improving your cyber risk profile to meet the ever-evolving cybersecurity challenges. Again, the cyber criminals have their own continuous improvement model in place, and they're looking for all different ways of getting into the systems. And it's happening more and more on a frequent basis. So if we look at with what's happening there, within Resolute Guard, we incorporate a user-friendly smart cyber action plan. Again, with what we do, it emulates specifically with what we've been doing and teaching and learning for decades, and that's a continuous improvement model. And everyone is all too familiar with Excel spreadsheets. So we want to make sure that we leverage those easy-to-use smart Excel worksheets to do several different things. One, to align the executive governance, administrative, with technical activities, as it's so important that the administrative side works closely and hand in hand with the tech side of it, but then also we're working and aligning all the regulatory and insurance requirements and or considerations that are coming up. And the biggest thing is we want to prevent a cyber incident from becoming a cyber disaster. Now, I know when I was at ESU 2, for instance, that was when we had some great conversations with technicians across the state as far as trying to understand better what they're doing and then to help facilitate that process as well. And I know Greg Peterson was instrumental in that as well. So our Cyber Smart Action Plan, again, we emphasize aligning the executive governance, administrative with technical activities, but then also with the regulatory and insurance requirements as well. So as we all know, again, cyber attacks are on the rise, they're increasing. And along with that, so too the insurance cost coverage and terms are also increasing as well. And I know many of you here today, if not all of you, have been working with the insurance companies and their questionnaires for quite some time. In Nebraska, I know a majority of the school districts and service agencies use ALICAP. And for the past several years, 3-4 years, insurance companies have been providing questionnaires to determine your due diligence that you've experienced, that you're doing to secure and increase your cyber risk profile, so they can help determine renewal cost coverage and terms. And with the ever increasing cyber attacks, we know firsthand that when school districts or service agencies haven't been doing their due diligence, some are lowering their coverage limits to some are non-existent, increase in premiums and deductibles, limited or no ransomware coverage, and then more and more required security controls in place. And the main reason for this, with these questionnaires that are coming out, the insurance providers do not have the actuarial data there to support and knowing what a direction they need to go. So they're providing these questionnaires to help determine the due diligence that you're providing and strengthening your cyber risk profile. And again, we have a partnership with many insurance providers nationwide. And then we've looked at many different insurance provider questionnaires, and we incorporate that into our cyber action plan as well, ALICAP being one of those. So we want to make sure that we're looking at those questionnaires and then aligning our framework within that. And when we look at the insurance questionnaires during this year, 2022 to 23, the insurance providers are providing more of recommendations with few security controls. But beginning next year, those security options are become more of security controls. So as we look at the cyber insurance coverage, the minimum security standards or best practices are what is coming up. And these are the areas that we know first and foremost that insurance providers are wanting to include in the questionnaires and to check your due diligence. First of all, the patching, they want to make sure it's updated within every 30 days, 1 to 7 days, and so on. Want to make sure you have the guidelines and policies in place, not only for what you're doing each and every day, but if and when that disaster occurs, what type of incident response plan, a disaster recovery plan, a business continuity plan do you have in place? Backup are other important areas in which the insurance providers are looking for. All too often, we've been finding school districts or service agencies that do not have any offsite backups, or they have backups in place with no guidelines or policies to guide them, or they're not testing them. So I know this is going to be one specific area they're going to look at. MFA, multi-factor authentication, is that implemented? EDR and so on. This lists several different things that the best practices for the insurance carriers are providing. And if you look at the ALICAP, I would imagine these are listed right in there as well. So when we look at our SMART action plan, we provide several different things. First of all, we do a comprehensive internal and external risk profile assessment, and I'll get into that a little bit more in depth. But then also, again, like I've been alluding to, we provide user-friendly reports that align administrative with technical activities. Again, that's so important with any continuous improvement plan. If you look back at what we've been doing for decades for teaching and learning, this holds true with cybersecurity and aligning the administrative with the technical side as well. Both groups need to be on the same page and need to have some level of understanding of what each is doing to build a solid infrastructure and the cybersecurity practices in place. Next, we provide easy to use policies and procedures templates that supports ongoing best practices. We provide a very comprehensive repository of that, so you don't have to come up with them on your own, but we have that repository of all the different policies, procedures, guidelines, and so on in place. And then last but not least, because of the internal and external assessments that we do, we provide the remedial action treatment plans, or the SMART CAP, the cyber action plans. We prioritize by severity and probability for potential for occurrence loss. And then again, I'll go through that in a little bit. So when we talk about our SMART cyber action plan, our SMART CAP, again, that I really want to emphasize the alignment of the executive governance with the administrative and technical side to address the insurance requirements. I visited with several people from Nebraska already, staff. There's all different levels of knowledge and awareness from the insurance side of it, which the technicians, they don't know much with it, or they're providing the security controls, or they're right there with the administrator and filling out the questionnaires as well. So in order to address the insurance requirements, again, we want to make sure we're translating all the technical language into easy understand reports and best practices. So as the technicians are working with the administrators, we want to make sure so they can facilitate and support that's being put into a language they can easily understand. We also, again, we provide a comprehensive assessment. We identify current networks, both internal and external, the strengths and weaknesses. Again, it's similar to the data collection for continuous improvement. And then we prioritize all those activities into an easy to use and easy to understand smart cyber action plan. And then again, within that entire process, we're also making sure we customize to specific insurance requirements as well. So within this, we want to make sure that every entity that we're working with, we want you to do the best as you can, as smart as you can, to prevent any type of cyber incident from becoming a cyber disaster. And again, as we're helping you to prepare for a cyber audit from your insurance provider, this is all part of that service. So our smart action plans incorporate 3 different key strategies and 3 different calls. We know and understand that the tech's responsibilities are pretty comprehensive, from the one person technician within a school district that has multiple roles, from the technical side to the teaching and learning side, to other entities. For instance, like ESU 10, there you have several different technicians there that are working closely with you, and that process is in place for the complete understanding of the insurance providers, the questionnaires, and to increase your cyber risk profile. So the 3 different strategies that we work on that we'll incorporate is, 1, we need to validate the compliance with the insurance requirements to optimize renewal terms. We want to make sure with the insurance renewal terms coming due here soon, June, July, and that's pretty customary with AliCap, for instance. We want to make sure that you're doing your due diligence. We have the documentation ready and to put into and to help fill out those questionnaires. The second strategy, we want to make sure that we're helping you build your response readiness from the incident response plan, disaster recovery, business continuity, and so on. And then the third key strategy and the third call would support the implementation of the solutions to continually work towards NIST CSF compliance. Okay. Any questions or comments so far? If not, I want to be respectful of your time as well. So within our first call, again, we have 3 different strategies, and the first of which is to provide the data from the insurance requirements that the insurance providers are sending out within the questionnaires. And the first one of which, this is an example of our smart Excel spreadsheet, or smart cap. This is for tier 1. Again, this will be on the first call, which we would do with both the administrator and the technician. And we'll take you through a list of questions and conversations to begin putting the data down and including within the smart cap. If you look at this, again, this is just a sample, but within the tier 1 compliance, this would be the AliCap. If you're part of the AliCap model, that would be included here. And then we would list those specific requirements, and more than likely they would fall within these areas as well. So we'd list the actions there, and then we provide a point from 1 to 6 that for compliance with that. And then as far as the solution, we list those as well. If you have a solution, we'll document that, the status of that. And then also, as we begin looking at the guidelines, policies, and so on, what is it you have in place? And then we also look at and document the data there as regarding the status. So again, we look at, excuse me. Sorry. Okay, so again, we want to make sure we're looking at the different insurance requirements and documenting all the data that we have available there. The second part is then within the first call, we also discuss the NIST guidelines to manage the maintenance of activities and the continuous improvement process as well. As I said before, we provide a repository of different guidelines, policies, and best practices within our framework. And you'll see here on the left side, this is not an all-inclusive list, but these are some of the different policies, guidelines, and procedures we have in place, from MFA to security awareness and training, EDR, and so on. Those are listed there, as well as some of our best practices from the Smart Cap, incident response plan, and so on. And you can see here is listed an example of the data backup guidelines that we provide for you. And again, so you don't have to come up with them on your own. We'll provide the exact guideline for you. And then we also reference it to a NIST standard as well. So again, as we look at the increase in cyber attacks that are happening worldwide, nationwide, and especially against K-12, it's not a matter of if, but when this happens. So we want to make sure that we're working closely and diligently with you on an incident response readiness plan as well. So we're going to help you build that if you don't have one in place. If you do, great. And we'll make sure we have all the different areas designed and covered within that. But we also want to help build the solutions when an attack happens to build that resilience. But then we also want to manage all the different activities that fortify your readiness, from the support and maintenance to listed in the incident response plan to the tabletop exercises and so on. Again, our intent here and sole purpose is to make sure we prevent a cyber incident from becoming a cyber disaster. As I said before, part of this is from some of the guidelines and best practices we provide. Here's an example of the incident response plan and then a business continuity recovery plan that we will provide for you. We'll look at the data that we collect through our initial calls, and then we'll provide this for you as well to include within your Smart Cap. So again, you don't have to come up with them. Then a part of that first call again is to a maintenance of activity. When you are audited by your insurance provider for a cyber audit, they're going to look at all the different maintenance schedules that you have in place. And this is one of the areas that we will work with you diligently with. When you look at the maintenance list of activities, again, this is a sample, but on the very first one of the requirements will be the MFA. And in this particular case, it's 100% implemented. Again, we have the guideline that you have adopted included there, the NIST control aligned with it, and then the cadence. In this particular case, it's 120 days. Every 120 days, and we'll have documentation within our repository for this as well. When you look at backup on site, that's going to require the same thing, the guideline. Sorry, got a jittery mouse here. We look at the backup on site, and you can see the cadence here is every 7 days. And you can document within this maintenance spreadsheet, Excel spreadsheet, the dates that you had listed when you did the backup. Again, all too often we've been finding technicians or agencies, school districts that do not have a offsite backup. They haven't tested it, and nor are they doing any of the maintenance. So this will help prove the due diligence and support you're providing as well. Just a second. Okay. When we look at then after the maintenance, we have all the different the controls that we use are based. We're not just coming up with them. We use the NIST CSF, the National Institute of Standards and Technology. And for those of you who may not know, again, this was developed back in 2013 by the administration, U.S. administration, that it's a gold standard framework that all government agencies and programs should follow and be a part of. So we base this off of our industry best standards for conducting the internal and external scanning tools to identify your strengths and weaknesses, and then to align that within the regulatory objectives as well. Again, this is the standards and framework. If you're not aware of, they're continuously updated with new controls because the cyber criminals are increasing and involved in their activities, increasing their activities as well as people, processes, and change each and every day. So that's why they're continuously updated as well. So when we look at the network scans, when we use the NIST CSF to identify your internal and external weaknesses, part of that is to look at your software and the hardware and do an inventory of it as well. If you look at the list there provided, you look at some of the different things that we will do an inventory of, the patching, the firewalls, the data backup, MFA, and so on. That lists a few of these things, but then we also provide you with a list of activities or the list of inventory of hardware that you have within your district, within your agency as well. The first one is all the computer names, the servers. And if you look at the very first one, it indicates the Windows server back in 2003. And this is this came from somebody not too long ago. Install date was 5/31 of 07. The age is 175 months old. So it's a legacy machine that happens to be in charge of it's vulnerable and it's in charge of payroll systems. So this is a good example of how we begin and help to support the alignment of the administrative executive side with the technical side as well. By knowing some of these things and this being provided the data, one, it's going to require communication. It's going to facilitate support, and then it's also going to help instill a budget that's going to be responsive to cybersecurity needs, not just 1 year out, but 3 years and 5 years out as well. So again, this is where it's really going to help align the technical side with the administrative side as well. Now, we provide many different reports when we do the internal and external scans, but this particular report identifies the immediate action list, whereby we will provide the recommendations that's listed there. And on this particular one, it's to upgrade or replace computers with operating systems that are no longer supported, and it lists the computer there. If you look to the left, there's a risk score, and that risk score is a 97, and the higher the score, that's the number you do not want. It exemplifies more and more of a risk based upon severity and probability. And if you look to the two columns to the right, these are all the actionable items, the immediate action lists that are based upon severity and probability as being high. And again, we list all of those different things. So as we look back at, some of the staff that I worked with as well, and we're working with now, it provides them with an opportunity to moving away from, well, this is what I think we need to do to strengthen our cyber risk profile, to this is what I know we need to do. Based upon the reports and the data that we have. It's no different than the continuous improvement plan for teaching and learning. The data is there and it helps guide your plan of action and moving forward. So again, this is an example of what we continued before with the tier 1, with the insurance questionnaires. But on the second call, then we'll begin looking at your response readiness. And this will be the second phase of the collection of data. And that we will work with you specifically with the technicians to, one, do you have an incident response plan in place? Do you have a business continuity plan? Is there a cyber action plan? All of which we will take you through another call, and then we'll document where you are. Again, not pointing fingers. We just need to show the evidence of what's been there, put it into a cyber action plan, and then help you move forward and strengthen your risk profile. It's done the same way. If you look at tier 2, this is a Resolute Guard best practices. The guideline will be listed there, the status there, the next steps, and so on. And then also to the right again, we make sure we include the guidelines that are listed there as well. Now, when we move on to the third call, that will be the third call that will initiate the scans, the internal and external scans, to identify your strengths and weaknesses. And this is where the third collection of data and support will come in. If you think in terms of, as we've done with teaching and learning for many, many years, we want to triangulate data. And this is one of the components of what we'll do here as well. When we go through the internal and external scans, as I showed you on the slide before, this provides the data there for you as well. So again, do you have the network protected by a modern firewall? Do you perform antivirus scans and so on? All of those different things will be listed there with you, collaboratively with you, and then we'll help guide you through this entire process. So again, think in terms of continuous improvement And we're using the same process, same framework for a cyber action plan as well within our smart cap. One of the most important things then in any continuous improvement model or the cyber action plan as well is to monitor progress and change every 90 days. We want to make sure that's happened because network people and processes change, as well as the cybersecurity or the cyber criminals changing as well. So again, every 90 days, we will come in with you and we'll conduct an internal and external scans to identify your strengths, to identify your weaknesses, and then we'll incorporate and list the progress that's been made, because we want to show not only the district, your agency, be prepared for a cyber audit, but we want to identify progress made and then also identify any newly NIST CFS risk as well. Again, those will keep changing, and each quarter there'll be different things that we'll need to identify and include with our smart action plan. And then the last but not least, we'll update and reprioritize the cyber action plan, as I said, by the activities by risk of loss. So again, this is our smart workflow management system, supports a continuous improvement model that we work closely and diligently with you. Within our continuous improvement model, as with that, for teaching and learning, there being an external team coming in to support that. Think of this as we would be there on a quarterly basis at least to help support and guide you through that process. Keeping in mind that we understand that just the daily operation needs are quite demanding for anybody in a school district, regardless of the size as well as the service agency. So we want to make sure we simplify this entire process and be mindful of that. So this entire process involves four main calls. The first of which, in the upper left-hand corner, it'd be a 60-minute call, which would engage you, the technicians, with the administrative side. It'll be an overview call to review your unique smart cyber action plan and to continue to initiate that entire process. The second call would be a 30-minute call with mainly the technician, but again, that's going to be the activation call for the vulnerability scans, the internal and external vulnerability scans. The next third call would be a 30-minute call, again, to review the results of the scans, to identify your strengths and weaknesses, to begin prioritizing activities, to continue to move forward. And then every 90 days, again, we would conduct these calls with the vulnerability scans and to continue to identify prioritized actions. Again, we want to be mindful of your time, but we also want to support and make sure we have time available to continue this entire process. So in short, when we look at our smart cap, we want to make sure we're optimizing your workflow to improve your cyber risk profile, but are also optimizing the value of cybersecurity, the technology that you have in place, the software you have in place, but also personnel as well. So within our smart cap, again, as I said before, it aligns the administrative with technical side to support cybersecurity activities. It's an easy onboarding process. And again, it's simple and understandable, user-friendly for anybody working with it. We customize it to your specific insurance questionnaires. For instance, in Nebraska, mainly ALICAP, and those insurance renewal terms are going to be coming due this summer. We want to make sure we leverage the industry best standards, the NIST CSF, to identify internal strengths and weaknesses. And again, that's going to manage the software, the hardware that you have in place, the new technology that's being introduced, and as well as the obsolete systems that are either updated or replaced. And we also want to include the prioritized activities by risk of loss. Again, the strengths and weaknesses based upon severity, probability, to easy understand reports within our repository of guidelines that eliminate wasted efforts, improve your efficiency, security practices. And then last but not least, some of our strengths. One of the biggest strengths is that we progress monitor every quarter to identify your strengths and to get you in the best possible position to strengthen your cyber risk profile, but then also to get you the best possible insurance cost and terms as well. So when we look at our smart cap, our action plans, licensing and professional services, we'll provide those in several different ways. Now we know and understand 83% of the school districts in the nation are based upon a small school with 250 devices or less. So this is what we based our services, our costs and fees on. But we will do everything that I talked to you here about. We will provide that at a charge, at a cost of for 4 continuous improvement quarterly scans, which majority of the people do. We have once in a while, some will do it semi-annually. Very few will do it one time, but if they are doing it on a annually or semi-annually, they see the value of it and they begin to move towards a quarterly scan. I know some of the costs that will be, that I'm sure is on your mind. The quarterly scans with 250 devices or less in one network, will be 59 or 5250 semi-annual, 3950 annual, 2950. And those are things that we can work with you and develop a partnership with you and work with you side by side. So the next steps then, what I'd love to have is to schedule a time to visit with each and one of you separately, individually, and then see what process we need to go with next. So Craig, do we have any questions or comments?
Not seeing any yet. Anybody have a question?
Okay, no questions, but feel free to give me a call at any time. Craig, how about, can I send you my contact information?
Yes.
You can send to them.
We actually have your contact information listed on our website, so esucc.org, and then if you go to the cooperative purchasing under what we do, and then cooperative purchasing, we list Resolute Guard on the website, where you can log into the marketplace and get David's contact information there too. So let me just grab it here and I'll throw it in the chat, David.
Okay. Now I know I went through this pretty rapidly, but I wanted to be mindful of your time and then to provide you with an introduction, and then we can schedule a time with you individually as well. I would look forward to that.
All right. If there are no questions, then we will post this on the website. So if you have others interested in it, you can go there, and it'll be under co-op again. And we do have a resource center there that you can look up all the product demonstrations we've done and webinars in the past and rewatch those. So thanks everybody for attending, and thank you, David, for the presentation.
All right. Appreciate it, Craig. And nice to be with Nebraskans again.